a little bit like this. Some will be more formal, some will be more informal, but it's on the same vein. It's to honour our Scottish poet. Okay, so for those of you that don't know Robbie Burns and about him, I'll tell you a few words about him. I'm sorry, I'm not going to translate it, because I can't do that.
We understand.
You understand? Yeah. And my apologies to Jean-Claude, because this might be over your head. So. Okay? It's not for this, yeah. So Robert Burns is considered one of the most famous characters of Scotland's cultural history. Few poets could hope to have their birthday celebrated in the most unexpected parts of the world, 200 years, actually more than 200 years, after their death. He had an unpromising beginning, yet today Burns' verses are familiar in every English-speaking country and are especially popular in Russia, and they apparently thought he was a communist, where Burns Night is toasted with vodka. Millions who have never heard of Burns have joined hands and sung his words to the tune of Auld Lang Syne, which a lot of people might know. It's normally New Year you sing Auld Lang Syne. Burns, sometimes known as the ploughman poet, was born on the 25th of January 1759 in Alloway, near Ayr in Scotland. He was the eldest of 7 children, born to a poor Ayrshire farmer, but his parents did all they could to give him an education, and by the age of 15 he had acquired a reading knowledge of French and Latin and had read Shakespeare, Dryden, Milton and the Bible. However, hard physical labour on the family farm took its toll on the young Burns, who increasingly turned his attentions towards the passions of poetry, nature, drink and women, which would characterise the rest of his life. He fathered an illegitimate child before fathering twins with his eventual wife Jean Armour, but a rift in their relationship nearly led to Burns emigrating to Jamaica with his lover Mary Campbell, his Highland Mary he called her. However, Mary's sudden death and the sensational success of his first published collection of poetry kept him in Scotland. At just 27 years old, Burns had already become famous across the country with his poems. He arrived in Edinburgh, where he was welcomed by a circle of wealthy and important friends. However, illicit relationships and fathering illegitimate children ran parallel to this productive period in his working life. His increasingly radical political views influenced many of the phenomenal number of poems, songs and letters he continued to write. In just 18 short months, Burns had spent most of the wealth from his published poetry, so in 1789 he began work as an excise officer in Dumfries, that's a customs man, and resumed his relationship with his long-suffering wife Jean. The hard work with this new job, combined with the toil of his earlier life, began to take their toll on his health. He died from rheumatic fever just 5 years later, having also published again in 1791 his last major work, a narrative poem entitled Tam O'Shanter. He died on the 21st of July, 1796, aged just 37, on the very day his son Maxwell was born. After his death, because he died basically a pauper, a memorial edition of his poems was published to raise money for his wife and children. Okay, so that's a little bit of insight to our Scottish poet. Now we're going to serve the soup, but once soup's put in front of you, please don't start it because we're going to do a grace. Okay? It's just